War. War never changes, but people do through the path they walk. The same atoms we use to destroy cities, destroy each other, were then used to create power. This series is not only about nuclear energy, but also about responsibility, innovation, and the lessons we can learn from nuclear fallout and human progress. In this video series, we'll touch on nuclear energy, the past mistakes that happened, and how it's a better alternative to other non-renewable sources of energy, and a specific type of nuclear energy we would like implemented in the future. The younger generation will form the future and how we need to learn from the past so we do not repeat it. This is the main reason we're making this. After the recent wave of nuclear fears, fueled by the popular media like Chernobyl series, nuclear energy has been painted in a painful light. In this video, we will go over the past catastrophes related to nuclear energy, clear up why they happened, and give some solutions to how we are able to prevent similar things from happening. The first nuclear catastrophe we'll look into is the nuclear disaster of Chernobyl. This happened in Pripyat, Soviet Union, not Ukraine, on April 26, 1986. At around 1:23 a.m., sudden power surge in reactor 4 caused a massive explosion, releasing radioactive material into the environment. At first, the control room did not realize that the reactor had exploded. The gauges were reading maxed out, giving the impression that the hydrogen tank had exploded rather than the reactor itself. Within minutes, firefighters were deployed to the site without knowledge of the radioactive dangers. In just a few minutes, these people were exposed to lethal doses of radiation. The plant managers did not alert the higher authorities, making communication slow and unclear. This meant that the people of Pripyat were not evacuated for about 36 hours of the incident. Some residents already suffered from radiation poisoning, nausea, headaches, and radiation burns. These people were not told these symptoms were temporary. The USSR did not publicly announce the disaster that happened for almost 3 days. The Swedish government had to turn action with the International Atomic Energy Agency. The statement was televised and was vague. They said that there was an accident at the Chernobyl nuclear plant, but were never mentioned the scale and the severity of the incident. Looking back to what happened to cause the explosions, the operators were running a safety test to see if the reactor turbines could power emergency cooling pumps during the power outages. To fix this, they had to reduce the power to the reactors. When dropping the power, they reduced it too quickly, causing the reactor's fusion rate to fall much lower than was intended. When trying to fix the problem, they went against regulation and pulled out most of the control rods. In the type of nuclear power plant being used, the RBMK had a glaring problem. When the water used for cooling turns into steam, it increases reactivity of the plant, making a positive feedback loop, meaning that the loop feeds itself. Just before the explosion happened, the reactor went from 200 megawatts to 30,000 megawatts in just a few seconds. This immense spike in power made the most of the cooling water into steam, increasing the pressure drastically, producing the huge explosion. The mix of human errors to flaws with the design of the plant made this explosion. Looking back and analyzing the multiple things that can be done differently, we came up with these things. 1. Having a third-party response team that will report to the public on any problems that might happen on one of these plants. One of the bigger hiccups that happened was most of the time they were trying to cover up instead of trying to solve the problems that could have significantly reduced the problems with the nuclear explosion. 2. Having a better training for the operators. The operator is not following protocol and going against regulations instead of avoiding huge accidents like this one is what caused the main problems. And 3. We need to use a different type of nuclear energy. Liquid fluoride thorium reactors do not have these types of problems encountered here. Liquid fluoride thorium reactors do not have the problem with positive feedback loops. It actually self-regulates. In our last video, we will dive deeper into the benefits of this reactor type. Now we'll get a bit closer to home and go to New Mexico and study the Church Rock incident. In July 16, 1979, the uranium mining residue disposal area breached its dam. The mining residue would be dumped here since it was highly acidic and radioactive. It will also throw toxic metals and sulfates. When the breach happened, about 2.2 million pounds of slurry were released, into the neighboring communities. The community mainly affected was the Navajo Nation, a Native American reservation of the Navajo people. When the people of the Navajo Nation tried to declare the area a federal disaster area, the governor of New Mexico at the time, Bruce King, refused to help, meaning that the funding that would have helped with aid was not received. This disaster is a huge example of environmental racism. After the spill happened, warnings were delayed, and the warnings were mainly in English instead of the native language, meaning that people would not understand the warnings given and could not have taken the right precautions in evacuations. Their crops were contaminated, and their livestock and food supplies were also found to have uranium and other heavy metals even years after the spill. The damages to this negligence against the Navajo people should not have happened and should not have been handled this way. Most of you watching this video must be wondering how a dam holding such dangerous materials could burst like that. The foundation, literally and figuratively, were shaking from the start. The dam was built on clay, silty soils, materials that are weak and can compress and extend depending on their saturation. According to the dam safety manuals from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and the New Mexico Office of the State Engineers, no dam or tilling impoundment should ever be founded on low-strength clays. These are soils that contain more than 50% of its soil as clay, without proper treatment like removal, compaction, or walls to prevent saturation. But in the Church Rock's case, the foundation was built on untreated clay soils. The bottom of the dam was not coated with anything, so the radioactive and acidic water seeped through the soils, weakening the foundation even further. The problem did not end here. Cracks eventually started forming along the embankment, allowing even more liquid to erode the dam. The dam then rose to 2 feet of the embankment height, which was not designed to do. When the cracks started to be noticeable to the naked eye, United Nuclear, the company responsible for this dam, sealed the cracks with bentonite and rosine slurry and did not take further action, despite the fact that a consulting firm had noticed more cracks forming and urged them for more maintenance to be done. To close this video, I want to give the solutions for Church Rock. The problem in this event were mostly bureaucratic. The management and political support was next to none. For cases like this to be avoidable, we need to strengthen the regulations and the consequences for not following safe geotechnical practices. The New York Department of Transportation and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers needs to find a better way to make sure that safe practices are being done. Also, we the people need to make sure that our politicians follow through with protecting those who are affected by these disasters. It should not be possible that to this day the Navajo people are still going through the consequences of Church Rock. And as previously mentioned, liquid fluoride thorium reactions should be the standard for nuclear energy. If this was the source of energy used, it would not have been this damaging to the people. Thorium residue still needs to be stored safely, but the maintenance and the damages from these mistakes are minimal.